So this game is that game for me. You've all probably had a that game before, a game where you play like an absolute moron and just crazy stuff happens and you end up winning, but you just want to like apologize to your opponent or pat him on the back and be like, "I'm so sorry. This game is so stupid." Um, because that was a little spoiler alert, right? But this was heartbreaking. So I'll go through this game with Jackson, and just for a little background, Jackson and I have a very very long history as far as Scrabble goes. Back when he was a school Scrabble player, um, I was kind of his mentor in some ways, and we talked a ton about strategy and positions and whatever, and eventually he got better than me. He became one of the top players in the entire U.S. And coming into the nationals, a lot of people had picked him to outright win this thing, and he wasn't having a great tournament. He needed to rattle off several straight wins to get back in it, and of course we got paired. I hate playing against Jackson because of all the psychological reasons and because we go way back and all that. But we got paired here. It's a huge game for him, and I have no real expectations, but it's also a pretty big game for me. So Jackson opens with AWE for 12, and I draw this rack here, ABLNQTY. Obviously, you want to dump the Q here, and you've got some choices. You could play cat, but that's going to play off your only vowel. You can play cat. You can play cannot if you really want to, but I think it doesn't make any sense to do anything that isn't QAT right here. QAT is super, super defensive for Jackson. AWE takes the back E, so he's got some plays there. But it really doesn't give a lot back aside from that. And those AWEE plays are going to score like 18 or 20. Maybe he bingos, but even then, bingos are only going to score 60, 65. Like worst case scenario, maybe 70. And you can see there on the, oh, you can't see the details. Let me fix that. You can see here, there we go, on the details. You can tell I'm a little rusty on making these videos, huh? You can see on the details that QAT looks pretty solid in terms of like limiting options for Jackson. And you see there, it's just now jumped to the top of the simulation as well. Cannot, I don't really see why you would play cannot there and not over here. Quackle's crazy. It's also a small sample size. We only simulated this about 600 times, but I'm always playing caught like 100 times out of 100 in this situation. I love keeping it closed like this, keeping it tight like this, and Jackson can't tell a whole lot from what this play means either. I could be super close to a bingo. I'm not, but I could be, right? So QAT comes down, and Jackson plays OUT right here for 6. Now, keep in mind, this is one of my first major tournaments since the new Lexicon came out, and the new Lexicon added OUTA, outa. But Jackson told me after the game he had a small suspicion in his head that because I haven't really played with the new Lexicon at all, I might not notice the back hook of an A on out. And of course, Jackson is entirely correct. It's another one of the reasons I was super not happy to be playing him, is because he knows me and my weaknesses and my strengths better than literally anybody on the planet. And I'm going to show him clearly that I've missed the back hook, because you want to play probably Mbe or Beamy in this situation. And I whiff on all of those plays down there and end up playing Mbe up here instead, giving up 2 points, making a pretty offensive play in a situation where there's just no reason to be offensive. And so I think that telegraphed to Jackson pretty clearly I haven't seen outa. No, I might later in the game, but as of right now, I am not seeing that move. If I could go back, I'd absolutely play Mbe or Beamy with outa, and I just didn't because I hadn't played enough Scrabble at the time. Jackson comes back with Wifey here for 28, and I'm going to make big mistake number 1 in this game. I'm lucky I didn't really get burned by missing outa on that last turn, but I pull into EEIILRY, and I think I just got paralyzed by seeing this W up here, right? And I'm like, maybe I can get rid of that with Louis, but then EIRY is a terrible leave. I can just drop WYE here. But I missed the best play, which is eerily right down here for just a ton of points. Yes, it does open the board, but I clear up a pretty junky rack, EEIIY, and you can score 32 and make it almost all go away like you should. when you got the opportunity to do that, you absolutely should. Quackle even wants me to play Eerily for 6 more before any of these other options. So, big mistake by me not seeing Eerily. I decided to play WYE instead, and you can tell I'm playing with fire with that leave, right? EIILR, like, I might bingo. My odds of bingoing are actually pretty good with that, but if I don't, I am in so much trouble next turn. So I hate this play in hindsight. I'm kind of shocked I made it, but I must have just missed Eerily. And of course, Nationals was now like 6 months ago. I'm super bad at actually doing these videos, and I don't totally remember what was going on with some of these. Luckily for past Matt, I didn't draw a third eye. That's super nice. But unluckily for past Matt, Jackson drops 1 tile, which makes me think, like, after OUT and then Wifey, like, he's got to be super close to a bingo, right? But I don't have a lot I can do, right? This is why you don't want to do what I just did and keep a bunch of 1-pointers, because when you don't bingo, bad stuff happens. And I've got a couple options, really, but I almost always try and play long out of these racks unless there's a really solid bingo leave I can keep. And I'm just not crazy about DEILR. Like, I'm not ready to drop OI for like 5 or 6 points to keep DEILR. It's just not that good. So Oilier, up here is 28. Oilier down here is 23. And really those are the only options that make a lot of sense, other than like get aggressive and go bingo. So we can play with Quackle a little bit and see what it wants us to do. You can see in Quackle, after we play Bio next turn, we're going to bingo nearly half the time, but I'm kind of a pessimistic player, and I'm thinking, well, what happens when I don't draw the bingo? I score pretty badly, right? You can see Oilier at H10. If I throw that down, just play off 6 tiles, I'm scoring only about 6 less per turn, even though I'm bingoing like half as often. So I'm just not ready to go like all out on the bingo, especially when, you know, that bingo's got a bunch of D's and E's and I's and L's and R's and won't score very much. But I couldn't decide between Oilier for 23 and Oilier for 28. With Jackson fishing, like, I'm opening up a spot for Jackson to bingo right there for 1D for like a gazillion points, and that's terrifying. But I wasn't really sure what else to do. I just didn't want to give up 5 points on my own to maybe stop Jackson from getting 90, and then with outs available, you know, Jackson can still double pretty often. So I don't know. I decided just to grab extra points here and play Oilier at the top and see what was going to happen with Jackson's bingo. And I kind of lucked out. I mean, if he's fishing 1, he's probably got mostly 1-pointers on his rack. But he wasn't able to hit, you know, the C on the double letter, so he didn't score all that much. He did have Narcissist. He still got 82, but like, we were expecting him to bingo when he did, and it really didn't hurt that bad. So I kind of dodged a bullet there. I pull into DIIMOSU, and this is where it starts to fall apart. I got some kind of confused between like odium and ionium. And you know, some other stuff, and I decided to play iodiums, maybe iodine. I got confused too, and that's just not a word. And really, like, I should know better. Odium is a 5. It's a very common, very useful 5, and I should know that it doesn't take a front I. I would recognize that, but I just didn't think long enough before I made this play, and I played iodiums, and Jackson challenged it off. Jackson does know a lot of words. He makes mistakes, but he knows a lot more than I do, if nothing else. And then something terrible happens. Jackson throws down JEE here, and I'm terrified because, well, Jackson knows I don't have the A to go in front of G to make a G, and Jackson loves to do little setup plays like this, so I'm afraid I'm going to get crushed for about 50 points next turn, all because I'm stupid. Speaking of me being stupid, I decide, well, oidium or however you say that, that's a word. So oidiums must be a word, right? Pretty much any Scrabble player is familiar with the plural of oidium, which is oidia, one of the best vowel dumps there is. But I figured, oh, it's got to be pluralized both ways, right? Wrong. It does not get pluralized both ways. And so Jackson challenges my word off for the 2nd consecutive turn. And I'm, you know, just like livid at myself at this point. You know, those games where you just make a terrible mistake and another one, your opponent sees what an idiot you are and you just kind of mentally give up. Like, yeah, I don't deserve it. I'm not in a good mental place at this point. And then Jackson comes down with Nerds, so he doesn't have an A, or maybe even if he did have an A, he doesn't need to cash it because he's got 55 points out of Nerds. And this is just getting real bad for me. So finally I do what I'm supposed to, and I play Oidium correctly, and it opens the board up a little bit for me too, but I'm down a gazillion points. I just want this game to get over with. I'm so embarrassed, so sad. I want to go home. What does Jackson do now? So this is where stuff starts to get interesting, and Jackson and I have gone back and talked about this game later, but Jackson plays Begun down here for 10. I can't remember what his rack was, but when you're up by this much, generally, like, I don't think you should be blocking. I think you should just be getting points. And blocking anything horrible, don't open a triple-triple, or, maybe block a double-double, but that's not a very effective block if you're worried about me bingoing from the M, and it doesn't score much. I think this one actually ended up being okay. I think Jackson had like a rack that made that play make sense, but he's going to do some other stuff kind of in this vein later on that probably hurts his win percentage a lot. So Jackson hasn't been able to draw an A for the setup he kind of made, but apparently didn't make, and I end up drawing 3. So I've got a couple choices I can make over here, but I want to cash that in before Jackson is able to. I can play Ah and keep a really powerful leave, A-R-S-T. I can score 6 more by dropping the R, or I can score a lot but hold a really unbalanced A-A-S. And in this situation, I decided to go with the happy medium. I decided to play Har. I do want to keep well enough that I'm probably going to bingo, or I have a decent chance to bingo. But I just don't think I can afford to sell out completely on a bingo. I'm down by so much. If I only get 29 and then I get a bingo, I'm still down, and I'm just not going to win the game. So that's what I decided to do. You can see that Quackle's simulation result actually just wants me to score a bunch of points with Wrath. AAS seems pretty bad to me, but I guess it's not bad enough to warrant giving up 9 points just to hold AST, or 15 points to keep ARST. So that's an interesting one. When you're down, you have to try and take shots. Like, you have to try and draw bingos and get back into it, but at the same time, you can't just fish, because then you're not going to catch up even if you do get those bingos. So it's tough to decide what to do. Again, I kind of split the difference there, and I really don't know what I would do if I were back in this situation. They're pretty close. I would probably still play hard, but that's just the player I am. You could argue any of those to me, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, I see why you would do that. This is where stuff gets fun. Jackson plays Lev for 6, and I'm like, but do you have 7 consonants? Are you about to bingo? Are you just paranoidly trying to block me bingoing to the D? And I can't remember what he had, but if you can go on Cross Tables, Jackson's uploaded his end of this game, and you can see what he said and why he said. But I think we agreed after the game, like, Lev was ridiculous and crazy, and it's just not a play you can make. When I was looking up this game, I was super confused when I got to this turn, because I recognize this rack immediately as a bunch of bingos, like 3 with an O, and there's septage in there as well. And I'm like, okay, septage? I don't remember playing septage on Jackson, but it's there, right? And one of the blindnesses I have in Scrabble is a lot of the time when a word ends with a Y, I don't recognize that you can backhook it with an S. And I think that's what happened here. I think I didn't even notice that septage played on the board with Embase. It's possible I just whiffed on the bingo. Again, it's been 6 months since I played this, but I think I just didn't see the spot. And I tend not to look for bingos unless I have a spot where bingos can go. So that's crazy. Like, in addition to losing 2 whole turns playing phony words, I whiff on a high prop bingo here because I don't see the line for it, or maybe I don't see the word at all. And I ended up playing PEA here. The reason I did that is I'm still down a ton, but I loved setting up this sneaky little double-double line right here, RE and then 7 spaces. Like, maybe I can crush him, but because Jackson scored so little the last 2 turns, I don't need a 90-point miracle bingo anymore. I just need a bingo to get back in the game. So stuff is getting super weird for me. Mentally, again, I'm super defeated. Like, I lost 2 turns on stupid words that I shouldn't have lost on, and it's just spinning in my head, and I lose to Jackson in horrible, awful ways all the time. I think I've lost more rating to Jackson than almost anybody else. So, again, just mentally not there, not at all. And then after missing septage, which I didn't know at the time, but I know now, I draw into a bunch of garbage. DGSSTV blank. And I end up throwing back 4 of those. Just keep ST blank. You never want to keep 2 S's on an exchange unless the board is like super hot for S's. And this board is not super hot for S's, especially if you don't see Embase for whatever reason. So we throw back there, keep ST blank, probably the strongest leave I could keep. And Jackson actually also exchanges, I don't remember what he exchanged, but he exchanges 5. I know that. And I pull AIKNST blank, which is amazing. You go from hot garbage to a 94-point bingo, mankiest. I think that's also a new word, so how ironic that I miss outa, but then I noticed mankiest. Maybe mankiest is 2015, though, I don't know. But suddenly I'm in the lead, and it's like, whoa, where did this come from? Now, I feel like my win percentage is still bad because it's not my turn and there's an unseen blank, but Jackson plays shrills here, and I say hold for a very long time on shrills because Jackson knows I don't know a lot of words. Jackson loves to make words up against me. He knows I don't really have the balls to challenge him because of that. And shrill, to me, that's just an adjective, man. Shrill is an adjective, a screechy, shrill voice, right? So I say hold, and I'm sitting on ADDEIRU. So I see that I can come back with Euredia here for like 28. And at that point, it's kind of anybody's game. It's like 50-50 or close to it. But I feel like without the blank, maybe if Jackson has it, he's going to win a lot more often than I am. If I can knock shrills off, though, I think I'm going to win this game like most of the time. And so I thought about it for a while, maybe 5 or 6 minutes. I almost never hold for that long. But finally, I'm like, you know what? I'm calling your bluff, Jackson. I challenge shrills. And of course it's good. Shrill is a verb, meaning to make a shrill noise, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. So I lose my 3rd turn this game. Iodiums, oidiums, and now shrills. When you lose 3 turns, you should not win a game of Scrabble. Now, I've lost some games where my opponent loses 3 turns, and like literally nothing makes me more upset, but Jackson comes back with Guaco, which is unfortunate, but with 4 unseen O's, Jackson's probably going to have some kind of play there. And I've still got this rack, and at this point, I need another bingo now to win the game. So I just throw away some letters, I keep something pretty balanced, I make a new line, I play duel. And Jackson comes back, he spins a while, tries to figure out how to block, and then he plays VIN right there. And after duel, I had like a miracle draw. I pick up OP blank into DEIR. I thought he probably had the 2nd blank, especially shrill when he played off 6 tiles. Like, I thought he was going to draw it after shrill. I think that's part of the reason I wanted to challenge it too. But I draw this, and actually there are 3 different 9-letter bingos that I have available to me right now. If you want to pause and stop and look for them, you can. One of them's super obscure and you don't know it, but the other 2 you could probably find. What I decided to do is the first one I saw, which is Periodids. I was actually already kind of set on playing Periodid down to the E, or down to the D, and then he gave me the I's. I'm like, oh, well, I'll just put the S at the end. I came real close to playing Periodide instead, which is just like absolutely a word. If you've ever taken Intro Chem 1, like Periodide is just a thing. And I didn't. I decided to make the blank an S because there was an S unseen. And as it turns out, periodite is actually not a word, which blows my mind. How is that possible? But thank God I didn't. So I come down with periodids, and you can look at the unseen pool, DEGNOOST. Like, Jackson still might have a really good rack. He might win this endgame. I'm not totally sure, and I think at this point I've almost run out of time because I spent so long on shrills. But I come down with that, and then I draw the E out of the bag. Jackson does say hold, because Jackson is like absolutely of the school of thought, if this play loses me the game, I'm going to challenge unless I'm 100% sure it's good. And Jackson was like 99% sure periodids was good, but not 100%. So he did his diligence, figured out, what's the best he can do with this end game. And sure enough, if you run it through Quackle, Jackson has no wins. The best he can do is lose by 3. So he ends up challenging periodids, and it's good. And I'm able to drop the, I'm going to make him pass real quick. I'm able to drop my E for 6 points and run away, or sneak away with this game. But I felt horrible. This more or less mathematically eliminated Jackson from winning the Nationals. And he definitely played better than me. I lost 3 turns on challenges, and I won the game. And I felt awful. My next opponent was like, "You ready to go?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not." And I walked around for probably 10 minutes just like in a daze. What just happened? Scrabble's so stupid. I feel so bad. Jackson was super upset as well. Like, I don't know. But it was this win that kickstarted a really hot streak for me too. So anyway, there's that. You probably learned nothing this game. Sorry for making you watch it. And I said I do all 31 games, so that's the plan. But yeah, sometimes you just play bad, and then Scrabble was really dumb, and that's what happened here. All right, adios.